You can call me Mystic Mac because I predict these things.
UFC 313 just wrapped, and I'm going to give you my breakdown and reaction to every fight on the card, starting with the prelims all the way up to the lackluster main event that just ended. I did pretty decent on picks, 7-3, even though there were some weird decisions in this one, if I'm going to be honest. I like the card, a lot of good fights, some good finishes. Main event left a little bit of me wanting a little bit more, I'll just say that. But I'll start off with Ozzy Diaz versus Jordan Santos. DJ Orden is what I call him. Ozzy Diaz ends up winning this fight. I wouldn't say this was a robbery. Okay, I would say this is a robbery. The only reason I say that this is a robbery is if they would have called it Ozzy Diaz wins rounds 1 and 3, and that's why he won this fight, then I can understand and I'll let that slide. But the fact that they gave him rounds 2 and 3, every judge, all 3 judges gave him rounds 2 and 3 to win this fight is just absurd. I think round 2 is clearly a Santos round. I think the swing round is round 1. So the fact that they gave him the decision and gave him round 2 is just an abomination. Refs are ruining this sport. We've got to figure something out. It was just, that's an egregious decision and an awful way to start my night on this card. Moving on, Myron Santos versus Francis Marshall. I almost went with Francis Marshall in this one as an underdog. He's an absolute dog, very talented, gritty, power on the feet, good striking, good wrestling, mixes it up very well. Myron Santos, I saw him get destroyed by Dan Argueta on the regional scene in LFA, was just taken down and dominated in that entire fight, finished by strike. So I was concerned that Francis Marshall was going to be able to do that. Myron Santos had some good success on the feet. I think he was hurt earlier in the fight. Again, this fight was a long time ago, and I haven't had a chance to rewatch these, but Francis Marshall had a lot of success. I could see him winning this fight, but I think if you base it purely off of damage, you go with Myron Santos. So weird how the judges follow the criteria and make, technically the right decision in this fight, but then had their eyes closed in the previous fight. But moving on, Carlos Leal versus Alex Morono. I love Alex Morono, super nice dude, absolute dog, very well rounded. I just feel like he was very outmatched in this fight. Carlos Leal looked really good in his last fight against Renat Fakhratinov, and he looked even better in this fight. He came out guns blazing. Dude's got very crispy striking, very powerful, was just tagging Alex Morono. Morono was kind of hurt against the fence towards the end there. I'm screaming at the TV for him to stop the fight just because I felt like he was out of it. I was almost thinking that they should have thrown in the towel because he was just clearly outmatched in this fight against Carlos Leal, taking tons of punishment. The ref stepped in and ended it. So I hate to see it for Alex Morono. Again, huge fan of the guy. I just felt like he was very outmatched by Carlos Leal, who was like a minus 800 going into this fight. Carlos Leal, I think he's like 30 years old. Yeah, he's only 30 years old. Huge for the division. Super talented. Gracie black belt. Great wrestling. Excellent boxing. We'll see if he can pass the drug test because the dude is always back kneed up, if you know what I mean. But great win for him. I think he's got a very bright future in this sport. Give him a few more years. I think that he'll be top 10, top 5 looking to fight for a title. So moving on, Bruno Ferreira versus Armen Petrosian. Bruno Ferreira, didn't have him winning by submission on my bingo card for this one. I know that he's a judo and jiu-jitsu black belt. Absolute tank of a dude. Just seemed like he was having success in the first round. Just seemed like he was struggling to get in on Armen Petrosian, which is, I understand Petrosian's much taller than him, like 5 inches taller, but he actually has more reach than Petrosian. But ended up in a scramble. Got the armbar from bottom, made him tap immediately. So it's a great win by Bruno Ferreira. Usually we see him knocking dudes out. So good to see that he can threaten off his back and get submissions when he needs them. So very good performance by Bruno Ferreira. I think he's also a very talented guy. I think that he could drop to welterweight. He's 5'10", he's thick, but I feel like he's got a little fat that he could lose to make 170. But then again, it's working for him at middleweight. Seems like he has good cardio. Maybe dropping down to 170 would kind of cause him to lose a little bit of that gas tank. But moving on, Joshua Van versus Ray Saruya. This was just an embarrassing performance for Ray Saruya. I think he forgot that he was in a cage and that it was a fist fight. I think he thought he was out on the mats wrestling in the Olympics again, because all he did was shoot takedowns. When you call somebody in MMA a crotch sniffer, this is what we're talking about. I can get behind somebody who's shooting takedowns, looking to advance, looking to get dominant position, rain down punches, looking to get submissions. He was just literally scared to death of Joshua Van's boxing, shooting takedowns desperately the entire time. And Joshua Van, I'd be curious to see the stats on this, but just stuffed. I think he stuffed almost every single one of them. So very impressive performance of Joshua Van. The fact that he's defending takedowns like this against such a high-level wrestler, and that he's got probably the crispiest boxing, some of the crispiest boxing behind Manel Kape in the division. Joshua Van's got a huge, bright future. Again, what is he, like 22, 23? Not even in his prime yet. Could probably put on even more weight because he's still kind of small for the division, but dude's got, you know, great base, big legs, good takedown defense, solid power. Sky's the limit for Joshua Van. So excited to see him continue on his trajectory. Again, he's only lost to Charles Johnson, who's also very high level, was winning that fight until he got caught in the 3rd round. So 3-fight winning streak. Big things ahead for Joshua Van. Next fight, Mauricio Rufy versus Robert the Green. Very impressive fight by Mauricio Rufy. Kind of burst onto the scene back in the day. Had kind of a lackluster performance against James Lontop, but then you got to remember, Lontop took it on short notice. I think they took it at a weight class above. So he had a lot of weight on him, and Lontop's just a tough dude. But Mauricio Rufy goes out there and just spinning heel kicks, king green, face plant knockout. My wife looked at me and my wife, and we were just like, what just happened? We couldn't believe it. It was insane. So knockout of the night, knockout of the year, probably for sure, unless something crazy happens. But Mauricio Rufy and the fighting nerds are on an absolute tear. Gene Silva, Mauricio Rufy, Carlos Prates, Kyle Baralio, all those guys in different weight classes. We got 145, 155, 170, 185. These guys are just running through people in that division. So performance of the year, potential gym of the year, coach of the year, you name it, these guys are on fire. Amanda Lemos versus Yasmin Lucindo. I should probably say who I picked in these. I picked Jordan Santos. He lost. I picked Myron Santos. He won. Leal, he won. Ferreira, he won. Van, he won. Rufy, he won. I picked Yasmin Lucindo to win this one. She lost a decision to Lemos. I thought Lucindo was going to be better at the grappling, landing the better strikes on the feet, being a little bit quicker, being a little bit more technical. That was not the case in this fight. Amanda Lemos was able to just kind of take her down and control her. And I don't think Yasmin Lucindo landed a significant strike the entire fight. I think heading into the 3rd round, they said that she hadn't landed any. Amanda Lemos was just bigger. She's just much bigger, much stronger than Yasmin Lucindo, and just kind of controlled her and dominated the fight. Not a lot of damage done. I think Lucindo had a cut on her eye from like a grazing shot in the 1st round, but other than that, not a lot to really learn from that fight, other than Lucindo's a little undersized and can be controlled on top, even though she's got decent jiu-jitsu. And Amanda Lemos still a threat at 37 years old in the division. Where does she go from here? Lost to Zhang Weili, got tapped out by Verna Jandiroba in her last fight. So she's at the kind of the top, to where she's fraud checking young up and coming prospects, which isn't cool, but not good enough to be the best. So weird position for her. I'm not sure where she goes from here, but Yasmin Lucindo, she's like 23 years old, so tons of time to improve, build into her frame, maybe put on a little bit of muscle so she's not getting outpowered by the Amanda Lemoses of the world. So moving on, Ignacio Bahamondes versus Jalen Turner. I picked Bahamondes to win this one. Ends up getting the triangle choke against Jalen Turner, who's a credentialed brown belt from what the commentators said, but it didn't look like it. I felt like he was in that triangle for at least 6 or 7 seconds, where I'm like, you should probably get out of this triangle that's being set up on you right now. And I'm just watching it happen, and he gets stuck in the triangle and gets tapped. It was just, didn't make any sense to me. Ignacio Bahamondes, absolute stud, very young in the game. Threat on the feet, threat on the ground. Only chink in his armor I've seen is against Ludovic Klein, where he kind of just got out grappled and held on the ground, couldn't really get any offense going. But Ludovic Klein is super underrated. People don't talk about him enough. So Ignacio Bahamondes, flashy kicks, flashy knockouts, and he's got subs off his back. He said at the end of the fight, he was like, I guess I'm a grappler now. It's like, I guess so. Triangle chokes, counter rags, head kicks, decisions. This guy can kind of do it all. Don't think he's ever been put unconscious. Has a really good chin. So again, a lot of potential for Ignacio Bahamondes. 27 years old, huge for the division. Bahamondes is what Jalen Turner wishes he was at 155 pounds. Let's put it that way. I think Jalen Turner retired, which sucks because he's only like 29, and the dude's good. He's got a lot of power. He's still got a decent future in the division. So I hope he didn't retire. I like Jalen Turner. He's a nice dude. A lot of talent too. But I think if he cleans up a few of the mistakes that he makes, some low it's low IQ moves. Now that I think about it, the last fight against Renato Moicano could have finished the fight, wanted the walk-off viral KO. This fight hung out in the triangle too long, got caught in the triangle, didn't defend it. It's just kind of stupid mistakes that he makes that I think that he could fix and kind of turn around his career. But now he's like 14-9. He was like 14. Yeah, he's 14-9 now. So not a great look. Moving on, Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev. I don't know how to say his name, but I went with Gaethje in this one. I thought he would grapple a little bit more, but I also thought he'd be a little bit more timid and measured, just with concerns of how his chin was. And I think both of them were a little bit more measured. Fiziev, I feel like he. What time am I at? I feel like he. I feel like Fiziev was concerned about his cardio. I know that he was looking at a Mateusz Gamrot rematch in early February that kind of fizzled. So I'm assuming he was ready for that. He looked in shape. Didn't look like the ACL surgery was really affecting him, which is crazy. He just didn't look like he was really opening up like he normally did. I'm trying to remember this fight, man. It's been a long day. I think he won the first round, and I remember talking to my wife. I was like, he won the first round in their first fight, and Gaethje won the next two. Had some weird scrambles. He had him in almost an inverted triangle on the ground, was beating up his body, and then took Gaethje down. I don't think Gaethje saw that coming. I think the last thing that he thought that Fiziev was going to do was shoot on him. But you could argue Fiziev won that round. I think they gave it to him. I think somebody gave it to Gaethje. Maybe I'm thinking of the first fight, but Gaethje rocked him in the second round. Fumbled the finish, just kind of north-south headlock position. Looked like he was resting, didn't really want to gas himself out, so didn't really go for the finish, but definitely won that round. And then it looked like in the third round they were both kind of gassing, but Gaethje was able to kick it in the next gear and take over in that third round to win 2-1. So great fight. Glad to see Justin Gaethje back in the win column. Dude's one of my favorite fighters. Been watching him since he was in World Series of Fighting back in the day. So super exciting dude. A lot of talent. Surprised with the wrestling though. Justin Gaethje's always surprised me. He's like an All-American wrestler, the first one at University of Colorado, one of the Colorados out there, but seems to get taken down easily and doesn't really have a lot of success with his grappling. But he was taken down, was able to get back up to his feet, so that was good to see. They clinched a lot in this fight too, and it seemed like Fiziev, he just must be super strong, because I feel like he was out muscling Gaethje in the clinch, landing some nasty elbows there too. But Gaethje just an absolute dog. I think he's back. He's 36 years old, gonna be 37 in November, but great win to get him back into the title picture. 1 or 2 more wins, maybe we see a title shot for Justin Gaethje. Who knows if Islam will still be in the picture, if it's Ilia Topuria, or kind of who's still fighting at 155 for the belt. So, but I wouldn't be shocked to see him get another title shot and win at this stage in his career. It looked like he was fighting a little bit more reserved, wasn't taking tons of damage, wasn't putting himself in firefights the way that he used to. So good performance by him, and great performance by Fiziev. He'll be back. He took this fight on short notice. Had a hell of a performance for a short notice fight. So moving on to the main event, Magomed Mose from The Office, Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira. Where do I start with this fight? Alex Pereira didn't look like Alex Pereira in this fight. He did round 1. He came out, landing those calf kicks to Ankalaev, immediately making his calf red. Lost a decision, unanimous decision. I think going into that 5th round, you could argue Magomed Ankalaev was up 3-1. It was either 3-1 Magomed or 2-2 Pereira. But I think Pereira wins rounds 1, 3, and 5. I think round 1 he definitely won. Got rocked in round 2. Got rocked against the cage. I think Magomed came back. He came in with a left hand. He got his hand up just in time to cover it, or else I think he would have been out cold in that one. But Ankalaev wins that one. I feel like Pereira edges him round 3. Round 4, Magomed Ankalaev's just, you know, holding him up against the cage, doing damage. You can say octagon control, controlling the fight. You can argue. And then kind of does the same thing in round 5, I believe it was. But not a very good performance by Ankalaev. It seemed like Alex Pereira, the first few rounds, he was just trying to invest in the legs and beat up the legs. Wasn't really throwing tons of punches at all, really. It was just kind of weird. It makes you wonder if there was something wrong going into the fight, maybe. Or maybe he was just too afraid of, you know, throwing the right hand and squaring up his hips and getting taken down. But I feel like in a rematch, I don't know if they'll do a rematch. They should, because Pereira's the man. And it wasn't a very convincing win, and I think a lot of people can argue that Pereira won that fight, so I'd like to see a rematch, because who else is he going to fight? There's not a, you know, it's Jan Blachowicz versus Carlos Olberg coming up, and Nikita Krylov, Dominic Reyes. Everybody else has lost to Pereira or Ankalaev, so I say they run this one back. The guys didn't take a lot of damage. Pereira would probably be willing to run it back because he's 37 years old, not getting any younger. So I think they run it back. And I think Pereira knows that he can defend the takedowns. He defended all of them. So I think that he'll be more than willing to open up with his strikes, open up with his kicks, knowing that he can defend the takedowns from Ankalaev. And he took some good shots from Ankalaev and ate him. Highlight of the fight for me, other than him hurting Pereira, was Pereira threw a left leg calf kick immediately to a right high kick that kind of stunned Ankalaev. I think that was in the 5th round. Maybe it was, but probably his best shot of the fight other than the calf kicks. Just not a very vintage Pereira performance. I was just waiting for him to kind of get into that stance where he's bouncing up and down, coming after his opponent. You know he's about to put it on him, and I just never saw that. I saw that for a little bit, but then he was just giving Magomed Ankalaev too much respect, worrying about the takedown. And Ankalaev is just, I don't know. It's frustrating when you get these guys who are winning belts just holding you against the cage. He held him against the cage for 2.5 minutes in round 4, I think it was, and the ref broke it up. And Joe Rogan and those guys are like, "Why are you breaking up?" It's like, because this is boring. I get it, it's a sport, and you don't break it up for it being boring, but it's like, you got to be trying to finish the fight. It looks like you're holding on, trying to stall out a round, and I understand that he's trying to tire out Pereira, get his arms tired so he's not as crispy once they get back to the open, throwing punches, but just very boring method about going about the fight. And it's hard to get excited for somebody like Ankalaev now that he's the champ in the division. I think the only fight to make, I guess it opens up a lot of fights, because you know he hasn't fought Jiri Prochazka, he hasn't fought a lot of these guys yet. Not that I can think of the top of my head, but I think he definitely needs to run it back for Pereira. Pereira deserves that. He saved the UFC on multiple occasions, defended the belt like 3 times in 7 months. But again, Ankalaev took this fight during Ramadan, so you got to give him his due and his kudos here. But love to see him run it back. I think I can see why they gave it to Ankalaev. I'm just frustrated that that's the way that he won, and I'm frustrated that Pereira gave him so much respect, even though he was defending all the takedowns. I feel like he got worried towards the end of the fight. He's like, well, it's really close, and if I give up a takedown now, I'm definitely losing the fight. So maybe in a rematch, which they should do, he's gonna come out the gates a little bit quicker, looking to invest a lot more on Ankalaev, just with punches up top and the leg kicks, and trying to get him out there early before he can really tire him out. Pereira looked like the more tired guy too, which is crazy. Ankalaev didn't look as tired as he did, but all in all, great night of fights. I wish we would have saw Curtis Blades versus Rizvan Kuniev, I think his name was. I was interested to see. I had Kuniev in that one as an underdog. I had a lot of faith in him as like a plus 300 underdog, something like that. And then Castaneda Gutierrez, sucks for Castaneda because, or both of them just recently lost fights, and now they finally get paired up and they lose that fight again. So sucks for those guys. Hopefully they can get healthy and run that back again. Just sucks for Castaneda because he's made weight like 2 times in a row, 2 weeks in a row, and hasn't got the fight. And I wonder if that's, I think he was the one that got sick, and I'm wondering if him cutting weight 2 times, 2 weeks in a row, contributed to that. But it sounded like there was some type of sickness at the PI. But again, he could have been, his immune system could have been compromised due to all the weight cuts and everything. But again, good card. Only 10 fights, scheduled for 12, lost 2. I feel like we haven't had a fight card with, you know, more than 12 fights in a long time. Usually scheduled for, you know, 13. I think this week's coming up this week is like 13 fights. So, but all in all, good card, good pay-per-view. Really good fights between Gaethje, Bahamondes, Lemos, Lucindo was kind of a dud, but Hoofy with the crazy knockout. Learned a lot about Joshua Van. Learned a lot about Bruno Vieira, Carlos Leal, young up and comer, gonna make a big splash in the division. So 7-3. On my picks tonight. So I had a pretty good night. Had a lot of fun, but I'm tired. I'm gonna go to bed. So I appreciate it to all my new subscribers. I got a lot of new subscribers this week, which is really cool to see. So I appreciate that. Appreciate the support, guys. And I'll be back this week to do my picks for the upcoming fight night. Roman Dolidze versus Marvin Vettori, the rematch that we all didn't ask for. So thanks, guys.